Hello, everyone. Welcome to the AI Applied podcast, powered by Waukesha County Technical College, or WCTC for short. This is where we explore the impact of AI across industry, education, and policy. I'm your host, Sarah Buska, director of the Applied AI Lab at WCTC. I am so excited for today's episode because we are joined by the incredible Joe Kirgues, who's the co-founder of Generator. He co-founded Generator in 2012, which has grown from a team of 2 to over 100 across 50 markets. Generator's startup alumni have raised over 2.7 billion with a B in follow-on funding and reported over 10,000 jobs created in that time alone. Joe and Generator are proud to partner with us, WCTC, on an applied AI program for startups in Wisconsin. So with that, Joe, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's so exciting too, because you and I were just chatting, and just 2 days ago, we were in the room together with the leadership at WCTC and leadership, I would say, from prominent state agencies, where we heard a leader of that agency say that they've never heard a technical college talk about what we were talking about in that room. And I think that's really exciting. And a big reason why I'm here at WCTC, why I know you're here as a partner with us, is because we're talking about really cool things. We are pushing the barriers, we're thinking differently, and we're not just talking about it, we're actually about it. We're walking our talk. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to just share what inspired you and Generator to want to collaborate with us at WCTC's Applied AI Lab, and what excites you most about this partnership.
I'm going to go with the second part first. The thing that excites me the most is we are playing to win for our community. And I think for WCTC, it's so inspiring is, there's a lot of people who you see they're just getting through and they're, happy to sort of protect the institution maybe they inherited or where they work. They're not necessarily going to be out in the forefront of pushing what the next chapter or evolution of that might require. And WCTC is out there doing everything it can to reinvent itself to be ready for the next challenge. And I think for us, we did not anticipate, with all the kind of different stakeholders that you might interact with in a community, a technical college was not at the top of my list of who we were likely to work with. But I think it shows the power of leadership and the power of partnership. And those two are areas that WCTC is second to none. And for us to have a chance to try to reinvent our community in terms of just artificial intelligence and what it's going to mean for everything from our workforce to our companies to our communities, with someone who's so proactive in trying to do the right thing and do it well, is not something I took for granted. And we're very interested in whatever kind of follows from everything we start with you, because it's so intentional and well done.
Thank you. Well, I didn't mean for this to be, give WCTC all these
Oh,
accolades kind of episode, but
it's very
and
sincere,
we're here
very
to
well
brag.
done.
No, and I feel that so much too. And frankly, Joe, I really like, one thing we love about working with you is just how open you are to work with us and for all of our ideas as well. So, one thing I heard you say that I think is really interesting and I want to hone in on a little bit is the fact that you said you were surprised that a technical college is doing what we're doing. So I'm wondering if you'd be willing to maybe talk a little bit more about that and where you see the advantages of working with a technical college or a 2-year college versus maybe the more traditional route, or familiar route perhaps of working with the 4-year institutions and some of those bigger names.
Absolutely. When we first met, and it's through the really every meeting. There's leadership from the college. I mean, it's not uncommon for you and I to be in a meeting with President Barnhouse and the cabinet or the leadership of the group, and it facilitates quick movement and pragmatic effort. And so I think when you think of what the technical college can bring to the table, what I didn't realize was um, it's not just the capabilities that come with training people in all these applied different facilities of our community, but it's also in there as a institution, their ability to move that quickly. And so, it's much different in a 4-year, I think, where or traditional 4-year university or research school or whatever, where I think there's so many different stakeholders that oftentimes you don't kind of know when you leave a meeting even what pathway that person might take to get something done, or even if it's the leadership of it, how they'll be working to activate their institutions to follow their lead. Whereas at WCTC, it's a big institution. It's not small, but it's one that's capable of, if the president and the leadership are aligned around an objective, you all put it to work right away. And so I think the speed with which you built that AI facility and team, including your role, is so impressive. And I don't know that we always see that from some of the other research-oriented schools that maybe, along with their size and capacity has come processes and some bureaucracy that can inhibit that outcome.
Absolutely. And we also like to joke about President Barnhouse's famous drive-bys where he'll come by your office and say, "Hey, I'm going to start an applied AI lab," and just walk away. And then you have to deliver on that in any way, shape, or form. And thankfully he supports those ideas. And his famous line is, "If you don't burn a building down, go for it," right?
Yeah, but
So we appreciate you joining us and not burning any
yeah, the
buildings down,
day's
but building
young.
some with us.
Yeah,
Exactly. The day is young, though.
but
Well, go
he's. I
ahead.
mean, it really speaks to. But I mean, even everyone around him having that attitude of, okay, this is what it's like.
Yeah,
It's cultural buy-in. Maybe not always the kind of on your toes environment that facilitates a relaxing day, but it's cultural buy-in,
exactly.
and
It
it
very much
shows.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much is. Yeah, we are one of our favorite things we love saying is when folks kind of, doubt us or think, how could you possibly do something like this? Or it's never been done before. Like our typical response is, well, watch us. We're going to just
I love
try. We
that.
don't think we're going to be perfect. In fact, we know we won't be perfect. We know we're going to make so many mistakes, but we have a great culture and that support that we know that we'll have that help and we'll be able to do something along the way, right? It's the phrase of we can do hard things, and we believe that.
Look at
So
that.
switching gears a little bit, I want to kind of focus a little bit more on entrepreneurship because one of our biggest, partnership ideas and things that we do together is all about incubating startups and talking about entrepreneurs. And we actually just kicked off G Beta in the lab this fall, which we're super excited about. So I'm curious to hear maybe from your perspective, thinking about the entrepreneurial ecosystem overall, what gaps or needs was Generator hoping that could be addressed when this partnership began with WCTC and our applied AI lab, specifically around bringing in AI startups here?
I think for the generator team, we're thinking about what the community is going to do to compete as much as us or an institution. We've had the privilege of starting here and growing from here, but also the responsibility of serving communities around the country and increasingly around the globe. But there's no place like home. And so as we've gotten this broader perspective that comes with visiting, Oklahoma City and Las Vegas and Fargo and wherever else, that every community's sort of thinking they're going to win, and I hope all of them do, but I don't think it's for granted. And as a community, we have to be intentional in what we do to compete. And when you asked about what gap was this filling, for um, anyone who's looking at the space, I mean, the artificial intelligence industry is completely changing. You just look at our community and how it's shaping everything from data centers to energy usage to, the next iteration of manufacturing or even knowledge economy jobs like graphic design or law firms, whatever. It's going to happen, and the more we can try to be intentional about making sure it's a success here, I think the better. And there's certainly, when you speak of gaps, just there was no product like it that we had available to us that we could work with supporting local startups and local businesses, in starting and building and growing products and companies in this space. So when you come, we can't fall out of a well sort of gap. Like we had nothing available to help, and your institution, in this partnership has provided us with, I think, one of the community's main lanes to do it. But yeah, there's going to be so much, so much change as we reinvent how we do everything. It was originally on CPUs and compute into now artificial intelligence, and we're anxious to see what we can do to try to make sure that's a win-win for Milwaukee and the Waukesha area.
Absolutely. Well, I want to give you the floor maybe to perhaps brag a little bit about other things Generator is involved in to help our community and our economy, and frankly, Wisconsin, like I heard you say, win and compete. Are there any things you'd like to share with the audience that they might not know about Generator, what you're doing right now with respect to AI that you think they should know?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'll point out that we do. I mean, our partnerships with you include, for example, you helped us secure a Microsoft partnership in Wisconsin to help provide generative AI training to incumbent workers in the state and leaders. So, our company, we started to kind of what we do and how that plays out. We started with an investment accelerator that we still operate today. So we invest in a few startups. Those are amongst the many who've raised that 2.7 billion now. That program, we started in 2012 and grew through 2016. And then in 2016, we added the G Beta program, which is a contract accelerator where we don't invest, but where we do provide the benefits of the accelerator model through partnerships with WCTC at no cost or payment or equity or anything to the founders who come through our cohorts together. And that G Beta really blossomed throughout the country. So it just grew into Round Rock, Texas last week. And we'll be announcing a new partnership in Green Bay tomorrow.
Oh,
But
exciting.
yeah, so we're excited, but it's grown now to now it'll graduate 300 or 400 startups. So of that 2.7 billion raised, about 1.9 billion is from graduates of the investment accelerator, but 800, soon to be 900 million is from graduates of the G Beta program, and that program's just 6 years old. Its first cohort, or 7 years old. Its first cohort was 5 companies, so it's really grown from that initial pilot to a much broader base. But how that translates to skills. We in 2021 formed a partnership with Skills, with Microsoft and Skills to help people who are underemployed get a job, and now that's grown to about 15 plus communities, and it'll graduate over 1,000 people this year. So all in all, our team of over 100 will run well over 100 cohorts across startups and individuals who seeking a new career across 400 startups and 1,000 people. On the skills side, and we get this sort of front row seat for the economy changing. What we're working on internally is the problem across all of our communities is why they're hiring us is amongst the 250 plus accelerators. There's really 6 or 7 that are multinational, and within that club, we're the one doing locals investing in locals. And so if you bring us Generator, we want to work with 5 startups from the Waukesha kind of regional area. Many of our peers will bring in outside startups to that same place. And the challenge we face is what can we do, across these three different constituencies of founders, just traditional startup founders who, maybe leaving a company or just graduated that are starting, ones that are affiliated with universities that we're trying to facilitate the 40 billion a year of federal research coming to market. And then what can we do to attract, national and international businesses to relocate to the communities we serve? But those 3 pools are the kind of ingredients we can use to create the recipe for success for each partner. And the challenge we face is, what in different communities you get a different mixture of each or different capacity to serve each. What can we do to be the best one? And it's so different recruiting, the average AI founder who maybe is leaving their company after 4 or 5 years versus a university professor who's thinking about commercializing their tech versus a founder from overseas who's looking for a soft landing pad. You're dealing with such different challenges to attract each one, put them all together into a cohort that comes out with the benefit of the community's resource to grow. That is the stuff that keeps us up at night. On the skills side, what can we do to recruit people who are underemployed, or in the case of our generative AI partnership, people who are looking to skill at large employers, and then empower them with not only the new skill but the last mile of support, whether it be to find a new job or to succeed in the one they have. But it's running that product across 100 different cohorts and 40 plus communities is I describe it as a powerful way to age early and die young.
Right,
It's
no small feat,
keep you up
right?
at night. Yeah, keep you up at night.
Yeah, that's one way to frame it. Keep you up at night, add to wrinkles on your face, all that type of stuff.
Bingo.
Yeah, well, you know what? 2 fun facts I want to share. One, my husband is a graduate of G Beta,
Oh, get
which I think
out!
is,
I had no
yeah,
idea.
yeah,
I
which
didn't
is
know
really
this. How do I
fun.
not?
Yes, right. Well, I mean, I'm gonna like
I hope it
talk
was
about
okay.
Generator like I work. Yes, it was. He loved it. So
Okay,
I'm gonna
good.
talk about Generator like I know about it, but I know that you started in Madison and Milwaukee, correct?
Yeah, we started in Madison and Milwaukee. Yep.
Yeah, Madison and Milwaukee, and my husband did it in Madison, and I'm based in Madison. We've lived in Madison for a long time, UW Madison alum, all of those things. And one thing I really want to kind of double down on and say and share with our audience is a phrase that you shared about generators philosophy, I would say, of like locals investing in locals. And I think my husband being, a G Beta alum, being in Wisconsin, being in Madison, this was back in the day, but nonetheless, I think that's a great example of locals investing in locals, and something, I would say a big reason why we love working with you, because I think, if you think about the venture capital space, you think about the entrepreneur space, typically that those dollars are reserved to only a few area codes in the country. You think California, New York, Boston, right? I happen to have worked in California in the Bay Area. I went to school in New York at Cornell, and I'm really familiar with what it's like to, be a company or be an aspiring entrepreneur and know that you have those resources there. And Wisconsin being my home state, knowing that it can be more tough to come by. And I think the fact that, Generator's philosophy is all about locals investing locals, and frankly, that kind of radical bet that, hey, talent isn't just reserved to these three, zip codes, it's everywhere, I think is really our philosophy that we have in the lab. And so we couldn't be more grateful to have you as a partner in that. I'm switching gears a little bit, and I want to ask you maybe some, I would say, more specific questions, we're in the VC space, thinking about investors, what that attitude is looking like. And I'm thinking, with the rise of vibe coding tools like Lovable, Base 44, with, companies right now that are starting, think about like SaaS companies, AI companies, which are the startups are going to be the ones that are actually going to win in this new age of AI when it comes to VC investment? What does that look like?
Um, I mean, certainly the winners right now. I mean, if you look at the venture industry, it's concentrated to the point of, unlike anything in my tenure in the space, where the amount going to an AI-backed startup is an order of magnitude more cash, more valuation, more resource, and also just in a few zip codes, like you mentioned. It's if you look at all the big funding, it's really just in three or four cities that have captured this many tens of billions. I think. NVIDIA just announced like 100 billion to help OpenAI basically build its own data center stack. And that's 100 billion is more than I think we did in venture capital maybe 5 years ago total, and that's
Yes.
just one
Yeah.
check to OpenAI.
Right. That
Um,
exactly one check.
so yeah, I think it's certainly reshaping our economy at a pace that is beyond anything in our experience, and that those benefits appear to be going disproportionately to the platforms that house the entire package. So, unlike the App Store, which was built to be facilitative, where you put an app on and you could have greater access to this marketplace of tools and solutions, it appears that these platforms may be consumptive in that they're not looking for an app to be built on them in the same way that the App Store was, but they're looking for a way to basically, within the scope of that AI platform, build the app custom made for you. And it's thinning the layer for startups to go out and compete using those platforms themselves as it's not that same equivalency of what we were seeing from venture funding to solutions like an Uber or a DoorDash that themselves live within the for me the Apple app, or at least the ecosystem. So it's definitely concerning to some degree when you first glance at it that we don't have this kind of database with a password around it that you can call software as a service, that fueled so much of the venture industry. That's chapter one, and it's for software. I think certainly part of the reason why all that cash is just going to a few platforms. Now, chapter two, I think, is what's really exciting. Then you look at what it means for applications outside of software, and I think it, for the first time in my time in venture over the last 13 years, opens the door to AI companies in biotech or and more deep tech spaces that are using AI to enable faster development of solutions or products or markets. And it, certainly manufacturing and quantum are areas that we think that this will come in next. But it's we used to be able to go out and meet a venture capitalist, and they could say they led a $3 million round, and we could guess the valuation, the revenue of the company, and their growth rate. And it was so perfectly priced that we could get pretty close. If they
Yeah.
were at a $20 million round, well, then we could guess that the startup was this old, at they had 20 million of revenue, growing 30% year over year, or whatever, and the valuation was 40 million or 60 million. We could get pretty close. Now all bets are off, and the market has to rebuild itself. I think that's a fun time to be for people who want to be builders, an investor in the space, but it's opening up the aperture to industries that maybe weren't historically thought of as venture capable. That's our hope,
Yeah.
and that what we'll see next. But today, the status quo is it's concentrated all the cash in just a few startups, and it's really kind of soaking up the energy from maybe some more of the long tail that we saw getting funded, or the longer list of startups that would have been funded 5 years ago is, now a much smaller list.
Right. Yeah. Really fascinating. Thank you for your take on that. And for our audience, that was a little bit VC math for you. VC
Oh,
math
sorry.
light.
Yeah,
If you want the in-depth
yeah,
VC math tutorial, apply for a G beta program.
yeah. That's probably too much term of art. I have to watch out. Sorry, it was like a very sharp question, so I gave a sharp answer. But
No, I
I think it's a
wanted,
good,
hey,
it's a good
I
question.
wanted shop.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. We're here to talk shop, Joe. That's
deal,
the
deal,
point.
deal. But yeah,
Well,
it's
to round us out towards the end of this conversation, I'll ask you one final question. And in 30 seconds is the gauntlet that I'm throwing
I'll take
down.
it.
Awesome. All right. So, what is one hot take that you would like to leave our audience with regarding AI?
That we have to choose to invest in ourselves in this, and
Mm,
a lot of the savings in our community are built up in these pension funds and endowments and balance sheets that are scattered at local hospitals or universities or corporations who are managing these dollars through professional investment managers that are allocating those venture portions of that to the coast. So you save $1 billion, 2% can go to venture capital, and they're choosing to put those managers on the coast. And we need some of that coming back here to empower our own companies, whether they be startups or mid or income, large companies, to reformat themselves to compete in this era that I think is the game is going so much faster than the rules, and we really do need to coordinate across all levels of our community, gathering these resources to revitalize our own industries, again, big and small, so that we can go out and compete. Right now, that's I think the big challenge. Was that 30
yeah,
seconds?
I'll allow it.
Okay, okay, all right.
No, it was 30 seconds. No, I really I love what you shared. Thank you. I think the message I'm hearing and for our audience is, invest in ourselves, right? We have a
Mm.
lot of great resources in our backyard. We have wonderful resources at WCTC. I would be remiss not to mention it. So thank you so much, Joe, for being on the show today. We are so grateful to have had you and had your time. I hope the audience appreciated this as well.
Thanks for having me. It's our pleasure.